I need to tell you about the Christmas that taught me everything I needed to know about my family, though it took me 3 more years to actually understand the lesson. It wasn't the yelling that did it. It wasn't even the cruelty, which was considerable. It was the casual nature of it all, the way my parents could destroy someone over dinner and then ask if anyone wanted more pie. My cousin Maya had always been different. Not in ways that should have mattered, but in ways that my parents decided did. She was quieter than the rest of us, more thoughtful, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. My mother called it sulking. My father called it ungrateful. What it actually was someone trying to survive in a family that mistook kindness for weakness. That Christmas, Maya was 23. She'd been living with us for 6 months after her mom, my aunt, passed away from cancer. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary, just until she got back on her feet, finished her degree, found her own place. My parents had made a big show of taking her in, telling everyone at church and the country club about their generosity, about how they were stepping up when no one else would. What they didn't tell anyone was that they charged her rent. Not a small amount either. $700 a month for the guest room above the garage, the one with the space heater that barely worked, and the bathroom door that didn't lock. They also charged her for groceries, utilities, and what my mother called household contributions. By my count, Maya was paying nearly $1,000 a month to live in a room she couldn't heat properly, in a house where she was treated like an inconvenient obligation. I was living in the main house too back then. I'd graduated college 2 years earlier and was working my first real job, saving up for my own place. The difference was that my parents didn't charge me anything. Not for rent, not for food, not for the car insurance they still paid. When I asked my mother about the discrepancy, she looked at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. "Maya's not our daughter," she said, loading the dishwasher with the kind of aggressive precision that meant the conversation was over. "We're already doing more than we have to." Christmas Eve, we had the whole family over. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew, my father's business partners and their wives. My mother had been planning it for weeks, the kind of performance she specialized in, where everything looked perfect and felt hollow. The dining room table stretched the length of the room, covered in her good china and the crystal glasses that came out twice a year. Maya spent the morning helping my mother cook. I watched her through the kitchen doorway, chopping vegetables and stirring pots while my mother issued instructions like a general commanding troops. Every time Maya did something, my mother redid it. The carrots weren't cut evenly enough. The sauce wasn't stirred properly. The table settings were wrong. "I don't know why you can't follow simple directions," my mother said, rearranging the forks Maya had just placed. Anyone else would be grateful for this opportunity to learn. Maya didn't respond. She just nodded and kept working, her jaw tight in the way it got when she was holding something back. I should have said something. I should have told my mother to back off, that Maya was doing fine, that nothing needed to be perfect. But I didn't. I just watched from the hallway and felt that familiar guilt settling in my stomach, the kind that comes from knowing you're complicit in something wrong, but not knowing how to stop it. The dinner itself was worse. My parents had assigned seats, and they'd put Maya at the far end of the table, squeezed between my father's accountant and his wife, people she'd never met. My mother made a toast about family and gratitude, and the importance of coming together during the holidays. She thanked everyone for making the effort to be there, listing names and making eye contact around the room. She didn't mention Maya once. When dinner was served, the plates went around the table in order of importance. My father first, then my mother, then the business partners and their spouses, then the extended family, then me. Maya's plate came last, and by the time it reached her, the roast was mostly bone and the sides were scraped clean. I watched her stare at that plate for a long moment before she started eating, her face carefully blank. "Maya, honey, you should eat more," my mother called from the head of the table, loud enough that everyone turned to look. "You're getting so thin. Are you feeling all right?" The concern in her voice was perfect. If you didn't know her, you'd think she actually cared. But I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when she wanted to draw attention to something while pretending to be helpful. Maya's thin plate. Maya's isolation at the end of the table. Maya's presence as an afterthought. "I'm fine, thank you," Maya said quietly. "Are you sure? You know, if you're having trouble affording enough food, you should say something. We're here to help." The table went quiet. I felt my face get hot. That secondhand embarrassment that comes from watching someone be humiliated in public. My father's accountant suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. His wife studied her plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. "I'm eating fine," Maya said, her voice steady but small. "Thank you for your concern." Well, if you're sure. I just worry, you know. You've been through so much, losing your mother and all. It's important to take care of yourself. We want you to feel at home here. That was the thing about my mother. She could say all the right words while meaning all the wrong things. We want you to feel at home here, while seating her like a stranger. We're here to help, while making sure everyone knew Maya needed help. I just worry, while ensuring everyone at that table understood that Maya was different, lesser, someone to be pitied. Maya made it through dinner. She made it through dessert, through my mother's famous apple pie that everyone complimented. She made it through the gift exchange, where my parents gave everyone presents except her. Not even a card. When my aunt asked about it, my mother laughed and said, "Oh, we give Maya so much already. We thought we'd skip the formalities." I found Maya later that night in the garage, sitting on the steps that led up to her room. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap, her whole body still in that way that meant she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. "You okay?" I asked, knowing it was a stupid question. She looked at me and smiled, and that smile was somehow worse than tears would have been. It was the smile of someone who'd expected exactly what happened, who'd stopped being surprised by cruelty a long time ago. "I'm fine," she said. "Your mom's apple pie was really good." I sat down next to her on the cold concrete steps. "Maya, don't," she said softly. "Please don't. If you're nice to me right now, I'll lose it. And I can't lose it. Not here. Not in their house." So we just sat there in silence, in the unheated garage with our breath-making clouds in the December air, and I understood something that I should have understood months earlier. My parents weren't helping Maya. They were punishing her for needing help, and they were doing it slowly, systematically, in ways that looked like generosity from the outside. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, if you've ever been the one at the end of the table with the empty plate, do me a favor. Leave a comment and let me know where you're from. Sometimes it helps to know you're not alone, that these stories aren't happening in isolation. And if this is resonating with you, hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be told, and I need to know someone's listening. The real trouble started 3 weeks later, in January, on a Wednesday that felt like any other Wednesday until it didn't. I was at work when I got the call from Maya. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her, her words coming in gasps between sobs. "They changed the locks," she managed finally. "I came home from class and my key doesn't work and all my stuff is outside and—" "Wait, slow down," I said, already grabbing my coat. "What do you mean they changed the locks?" "Your parents. They changed the locks. Everything I own is in trash bags on the driveway. My books, my clothes, everything. There's a note that says I need to be out by tonight or they'll call the police." I made it to my parents' house in 15 minutes, a drive that should have taken 30. Maya was sitting on the curb surrounded by black garbage bags, her laptop clutched to her chest. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face blotchy from crying. She looked small and broken and very young. The note was taped to the front door, printed on my father's law firm letterhead to make it look official. It said that Maya had violated the terms of her rental agreement by failing to pay rent for the past 2 months, that my parents had followed all legal procedures for eviction, and that if she didn't remove her belongings by 6 p.m., they would be considered abandoned and disposed of accordingly. "I paid rent," Maya said, her voice shaking. "I paid every month. I have the checks. I have proof." I believed her. Of course I believed her. But I also knew my parents, and I knew that whatever proof Maya had wouldn't matter. They'd decided she needed to go, so she was going. The eviction was just the story they'd tell to make it legal. I called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice calm and pleasant, like we were discussing dinner plans. "Oh, honey, yes, we had to let Maya go. It's unfortunate, but she wasn't keeping up with her obligations. She says she paid rent every month." Well, she would say that, wouldn't she? But the fact is she owes us quite a bit of money. We've been more than patient, but we can't let her take advantage of our generosity forever. There was something in her voice, a satisfaction that made my skin crawl. This wasn't about money. This was about power. About reminding Maya of her place. About demonstrating to everyone watching that my parents' generosity had limits. And those limits were whatever they decided they were on any given day. Where is she supposed to go? That's not really our problem, is it? She's an adult. She'll figure it out. We did our part. More than our part, actually. I helped Maya load her stuff into my car. 13 garbage bags, 3 boxes, a lamp with a broken shade, and a small bookshelf my aunt had bought her for her 16th birthday. Everything she owned in the world fit in my Honda Civic with the seats folded down. We drove to a motel off the highway, the kind of place that rents by the week and doesn't ask questions. I paid for 3 nights and gave her what cash I had in my wallet. "I'll figure something out," she said, sitting on the motel bed that sagged in the middle. "I just need a few days." "You can stay with me," I offered. She shook her head. "I can't ask you to do that. Your parents? My parents are acting like monsters. You don't owe them anything." But even as I said it, I knew I was being a coward, because I didn't invite Maya to stay in my apartment. I invited her to stay with me in my room at my parents' house, where I still lived rent-free, where I was still dependent on their goodwill. I wasn't willing to risk my own comfort to help her. I was willing to pay for a motel, to give her some cash, to make supportive noises. But I wasn't willing to actually sacrifice anything. Maya saw it too. I watched her understand it, watched the last bit of hope drain out of her face. "It's okay," she said. "You've done enough. More than enough. I'll be fine." I left her there in that depressing motel room and drove back to my parents' house, where my mother had made pot roast and my father was watching the news. They didn't ask about Maya. They didn't mention the eviction. We ate dinner and they talked about their day, and I sat there thinking about Maya alone in that motel, surrounded by garbage bags, wondering how we'd gotten here. That night, lying in my comfortable bed in my comfortable room, I made a decision. I was going to move out. I was going to get my own place, and I was going to help Maya for real this time. I was going to stop being complicit. It took me 2 months to find an apartment I could afford. A 1-bedroom in a neighborhood that was technically up and coming, but currently just coming. I signed the lease on a Friday and told my parents that night at dinner. My mother's face did something complicated. "You're moving out? Why?" "It's time. I'm 24. I should have my own place." "But you're doing so well here. Why would you want to leave?" "Because every day I stay here, I become more like you," I thought but didn't say. "Because I watched what you did to Maya and I didn't stop it. Because if I don't leave now, I never will. I just need my own space," I said instead. My father nodded. "That's reasonable. You'll need a car, though. You can't rely on public transportation in this city." "I'll figure it out." "Nonsense. We'll help you. What's family for?" And that's how I ended up with the car that would eventually cost Maya $30,000. The car was a 3-year-old Toyota Camry, silver, with leather seats and a sunroof. My father bought it from a dealership that owed him a favor, paid cash, and put it in my name. He handed me the keys over breakfast on a Sunday morning, casual as anything. "Consider it a housewarming gift," he said. I should have known better. I should have understood that gifts from my parents always came with strings attached, invisible threads that wound around you slowly until you couldn't move without pulling something loose. But I was 24 and excited about my new apartment and my new car, and I convinced myself that maybe this time was different. Maybe they were being genuinely generous. Maybe I'd been too hard on them about the Maya situation. I moved into my apartment on a Saturday in March. Maya helped me unpack. She'd found a job at a coffee shop and was renting a room in a house with 4 other people near campus. She seemed okay, or at least she seemed like she was surviving, which was different but close enough. "Nice car," she said, helping me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. "My dad bought it for me. A moving out present." She didn't say anything, but something flickered across her face. Not jealousy. Something sadder than that. Recognition, maybe. The understanding that my parents' generosity only flowed in certain directions, to certain people, under certain conditions. For 3 years, everything was fine. Better than fine. I was living on my own, making decent money, building a life that felt like mine. I saw my parents once a month for dinner, kept things cordial, maintained the relationship at a safe distance. Maya and I stayed in touch. She graduated, got a job at a nonprofit, started building her own life. We met for coffee sometimes, traded messages about our days. We didn't talk about my parents. That whole chapter felt closed. Then, on a Tuesday in April, 3 years after I moved out, I got an email from my father's law firm. The subject line said, "Outstanding debt notice, immediate action required." I opened it thinking it was a mistake, spam, something meant for someone else. It wasn't. The email stated that I owed my parents $30,000 for the car my father had given me 3 years earlier. According to the attached documentation, the car had been a loan, not a gift. The terms of the loan, which I had apparently agreed to, stated that I would pay back the full amount within 3 years, or the car would revert to my parents' ownership. The 3 years were up. I owed them $30,000, plus interest, due within 30 days. I called my father immediately. "Dad, what the hell is this?" "Language," he said calmly. "It's exactly what it says. You borrowed money for the car. The loan is due. Time to pay up. You said it was a gift. You said it was a housewarming present. I said it was a housewarming gift. I never said it was free. You really should read documents more carefully before you sign them. I never signed anything. Actually, you did. Remember that insurance paperwork you signed when we registered the car? Read the fine print. It was all there. My hands were shaking. My father had tricked me. He'd buried a loan agreement in insurance paperwork 3 years ago and waited until now to call it in. It was legal, probably. My father was a lawyer. He knew how to make anything legal, but it was cruel in a way that took my breath away. I don't have $30,000, I said. Then I guess we'll have to take the car back and pursue legal action for the remainder. We gave you an opportunity and you squandered it. Actions have consequences. I hung up and sat on my couch staring at nothing. $30,000. 3 years of driving that car, believing it was mine, building a life around the freedom it gave me. And all along, it had been a trap, waiting to spring. I couldn't pay. Even if I emptied my savings, maxed out my credit cards, I couldn't come close to $30,000. I was going to lose the car, and probably get sued for the difference. My father would ruin my credit, my financial future, everything I'd built. And he'd do it legally, systematically, with documentation and lawyers, and the full weight of his professional reputation. I called Maya that night and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is about me," she said finally. "What?" "No. This is about you helping me. You giving me that money for the motel. You staying in touch. They're punishing you for not cutting me off." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Because she was right. I'd seen what my parents did to people who didn't fall in line. I'd watched them destroy Maya for needing help, and now they were doing the same thing to me, dressed up in legal paperwork and financial obligations. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked. "I don't know. Lose the car, I guess. Let them sue me. Hope I can survive it." "No," she said, and there was something in her voice I'd never heard before. Something hard and determined. "You're not going to do that. We're going to fix this." "Maya, there's nothing to fix. They're lawyers. They have paperwork. They're going to win. They're going to win if you play by their rules. So we're not going to play by their rules." Before we go any further, I need to know something. Have you ever dealt with family members who use money as a weapon? Who give with one hand and take with the other? Who make generosity feel like manipulation? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button. This story is about to get interesting, and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Maya's plan was simple, elegant, and completely insane. We were going to invoice my parents for every service they'd never paid her for during the 6 months she lived with them. "They charged me rent," she said, pulling out a notebook and a calculator. "They charged me for groceries, utilities, household contributions, but I cooked every meal. I cleaned the entire house. I did their laundry, ran their errands, organized my mother's closets, weeded the garden. They got a full-time housekeeper and personal assistant for 6 months, and they paid me nothing. Maya, I don't think... Minimum wage for a housekeeper in this state is $18 an hour. I worked at least 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months. That's..." She did the math. Approximately $43,000 in labor. Plus back rent for charging me to live in an unheated room with a broken bathroom. That's a housing code violation, which means I'm entitled to compensation. Plus emotional distress from the Christmas incident, which was witnessed by approximately 20 people. She looked up at me, her eyes bright with something that might have been fury or might have been joy. It was hard to tell the difference. "I'm going to send your parents an invoice for $65,000, and I'm going to tell them that if they pursue this bullshit car loan, I'm filing a lawsuit for unpaid wages, housing violations, and emotional distress. I have witnesses. I have documentation. I kept every receipt, every check, every text message. I'm going to make this so expensive and so public that dropping the car loan is going to look like the merciful option. They'll destroy you," I said. "They already destroyed me. Now I'm just returning the favor." She sent the invoice on a Friday, via certified mail, with copies to my father's law partners and my mother's entire book club. The invoice was itemized, professional, backed up with photographs of the unheated room, copies of rent checks, testimony from the accountant who'd sat next to her at Christmas dinner, and later told his wife that my parents' treatment of Maya was unconscionable. My father called me that night. He was angrier than I'd ever heard him. "Your cousin is out of her mind. This invoice is absurd. We gave her a place to live. We took her in when no one else would. You charged her rent for an illegal room and then threw her out with trash bags. We followed all legal procedures. Did you follow legal procedures when you made her work as your maid for free? Because I'm pretty sure that's called wage theft. And I'm pretty sure Maya has evidence. Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, what does she want? She wants you to drop the car loan. She wants you to leave me alone. And she wants you to pay her for 6 months of unpaid labor. That's extortion. That's negotiation. You're a lawyer. You understand negotiation. More silence. Then, we'll drop the car loan. But we're not paying her a dime. And if she pursues this, we'll bury her in legal fees. She has an employment lawyer who's taking the case pro bono. Apparently, wage theft cases are his specialty, and he thinks this one is a slam dunk. Something about how judges really don't like it when lawyers exploit vulnerable family members. Bad optics, he said. That was a lie. Maya didn't have a lawyer. But my father didn't know that, and the threat was enough. Because the thing about people who use the law as a weapon is that they understand how badly it can cut them too. They know exactly how much damage a motivated opponent can do with the right documentation and the right audience. Fine, my father said finally. The car is yours. Fully paid. We'll send you the title. But this is it. You're choosing her over us. You understand that, right? After everything we've done for you, you're choosing her. I'm not choosing anyone. I'm just refusing to participate in whatever game this is. It's not a game, it's family, and you're betraying it. He hung up. 3 days later, I received the car title in the mail, signed over, fully paid. No note, no explanation. Just the title and a passive-aggressive silence that I knew would last for years. Maya and I celebrated at a bar near my apartment. She ordered expensive cocktails and I paid, grateful and guilty and relieved in equal measure. You saved me, I said. No, she said, stirring her drink. I saved us both. You were going to let them do this to you. You were going to accept it because you thought you didn't have a choice. Did we have a choice? We always have a choice. Even when the choices are all bad, we get to decide which bad thing we can live with. I decided I couldn't live with watching them destroy you the way they tried to destroy me. We sat in silence for a while, the bar noise washing over us. Finally, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Why did you keep all that documentation? All those receipts and text messages and photos? Did you know you'd need them someday? Maya looked at me and her smile was sad and knowing. I learned a long time ago that when people show you who they are, you should believe them and document everything, just in case. 3 years have passed since the car situation. I haven't spoken to my parents since the day my father called me a traitor. They haven't called me either. No birthdays, no holidays, no random check-ins. It's like I've been erased from the family, excommunicated for the crime of having boundaries. Maya and I are still close. She's doing well. She got promoted at her nonprofit, bought a condo, adopted a cat named Justice because she has a dark sense of humor about these things. We have dinner once a week and never talk about my parents unless we're making jokes. The jokes help. I wish I could say I don't miss them. I wish I could say cutting them off was easy, that I felt nothing but relief. But the truth is more complicated. I miss the people I thought they were when I was young, before I understood what their generosity cost. I miss the fantasy of a normal family, even though I know that family never really existed. What I don't miss is the constant calculation of what I owed them, the mental arithmetic of gifts received and obligations incurred, the knowledge that everything came with strings, that love was transactional, that family was just another word for leverage. Sometimes people ask me if I have regrets, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is complicated. I regret not standing up for Maya sooner. I regret living in my parents' house for as long as I did, accepting their help while watching them hurt someone I cared about. I regret every time I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. But I don't regret the car situation. I don't regret the way it ended, because that fight taught me something essential about who I wanted to be. It taught me that sometimes the price of peace is too high, that some relationships aren't worth preserving at any cost, that family doesn't mean you have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. The car is still running fine, by the way. 200,000 miles now. I'll probably drive it until it dies, this car that almost cost me everything, this gift that was never really a gift. Every time I start the engine, I think about that Tuesday when everything fell apart and then, somehow, came back together. I think about Maya sitting in that motel room with all her belongings in garbage bags, figuring out how to survive. I think about the invoice she sent my parents, that beautiful, vindictive, perfectly justified invoice that saved us both. I think about the choice she made to fight back, instead of accepting what looked like inevitable defeat. And I think about my parents, wherever they are, living their perfect lives with their perfect house and their perfect reputation. I wonder if they ever think about us. I wonder if they understand what they lost. I wonder if they ever look at their empty dinner table and realize that the price of control was connection, that you can't manipulate people into loving you, that eventually everyone gets tired of being managed. Probably not. People like my parents don't tend towards self-reflection. They're too busy being right, too invested in their version of the story where they're the victims and everyone else is ungrateful. They'll tell their friends that I abandoned them, that Maya turned me against them, that they tried everything and I just wouldn't listen. And maybe they're right in a way. Maybe I am ungrateful. Maybe I should have been more appreciative of the car, the room, the opportunities they gave me. Maybe I should have understood that in their world, in their value system, they really were being generous. But generosity that comes with a price tag isn't generosity. It's a transaction. And I was tired of being in debt to people who kept changing the terms. The thing about family trauma is that it doesn't resolve cleanly. There's no moment where everything suddenly makes sense, where you wake up healed and whole and free of the past. It's more like learning to live with a chronic injury. Some days it barely hurts, and some days it's all you can think about. I still have dreams sometimes where I'm back at that Christmas dinner, watching Maya at the end of the table with her empty plate. In the dreams, I stand up. I say something. I make a scene. I defend her the way I should have defended her then. But I never did, and I can't go back and fix it. And the guilt of that silence is something I carry. Maya tells me I'm being too hard on myself. She says I was a kid, basically, still figuring out who I was and what I believed. She says the fact that I eventually chose the right thing counts for something. I want to believe her. Most days I do believe her. But there's a part of me that will always be sitting in that hallway, watching my mother humiliate someone I loved, and doing nothing about it. I've been thinking a lot about what we inherit from our families. Not money or property or genetic predispositions, but patterns, ways of being. My parents taught me that love is something you earn through usefulness, that relationships are power struggles, that you're either in control or being controlled. Those lessons sink deep. They shape you in ways you don't notice until you're in your own relationships, making your own choices, and suddenly you hear your mother's voice coming out of your mouth. Breaking those patterns is harder than cutting contact. It's harder than sending invoices or standing up for yourself in one big dramatic moment. It's the daily work of catching yourself before you make someone prove they deserve your kindness. It's noticing when you're keeping score in a relationship, when you're using your resources as leverage, when you're repeating the same dynamics that hurt you. I fail at this sometimes. I catch myself making mental notes of favors done and debts owed. I catch myself testing people, waiting for them to disappoint me so I can confirm my suspicion that everyone wants something. It's exhausting, being vigilant against yourself, constantly monitoring your own behavior for signs of your parents' influence. But I'm getting better, I think. I hope. Maya is teaching me. Not explicitly, not with lectures or advice, but through example. She has this way of giving without expecting anything back, of helping people because she wants to, not because she's calculating the return on investment. When I thank her for something, she looks confused, like gratitude is strange and unnecessary between friends. She doesn't keep score. She doesn't hold grudges beyond the necessary ones. She just moves through the world assuming the best of people until they prove otherwise. I asked her once how she does it, how she stayed kind after everything my parents did to her. We were walking through a park near her place, early evening, the light going golden and soft. "I'm not kind," she said. "I'm strategic. Being bitter would mean they won. Being angry all the time would mean giving them space in my head forever. So I just let it go. Not for them. For me. That simple and that hard. Every day I wake up and choose not to be the person they tried to make me. Every day I choose to believe that what happened to me was specific, not universal. That their cruelty doesn't mean everyone is cruel. That I can still trust people even though they taught me not to. And does it work?" She smiled. "Most days. Some days I still want to burn their house down. But most days, I'm okay. That's the thing I'm learning. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep choosing, day after day, to be something other than what you were taught. You have to keep trying. Even when you fail. Even when you backslide. Even when you wake up and realize you've been playing your parents' games without noticing. I'm 30 years old now. I have a life that's mine, relationships that aren't transactional, a car that nobody can take away from me. I have Maya, who taught me what real family looks like. I have friends who don't keep score. I have a therapist who's patient with me when I spiral into control issues or get weird about accepting help. I'm building something different. Slowly. Imperfectly. but mine. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not the invoice, not the fight over the car, not the dramatic break with my parents. The real revenge is becoming someone they didn't raise me to be. Someone who gives without expecting. Someone who loves without calculating. Someone who believes that people are worth trusting, worth helping, worth showing up for. My parents taught me to see the world as a series of transactions. Maya taught me it could be something else. I choose to believe her. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Really. These stories aren't easy to tell, and they're not easy to hear, but I think they matter. I think it helps to know that other people have lived through this kind of thing and come out the other side. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from, what resonated with you, whether you've dealt with anything similar. These conversations, these connections, they're why I do this. Because nobody should feel alone in this stuff. Because our stories deserve to be heard. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's dealing with family manipulation or financial control, or any of the 1,000 ways people use love as a weapon, share this video. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is tell the truth about what happened to you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.